Shern.
I'm Melissa.
I'm Bei Ee.
I'm Zoe.
And I'm Ivana.
So, today we'll be diving into the reality of sexual abuse with several cases in the form of our group project as a way of raising awareness and educating you on sexual assault, rape, and sexual violence. Fundamentally, rape is sex without consent or sex with a person who is unable to consent. Sexual assault is any sexual contact without consent, while sexual violence is any sexual activity where consent is not obtained or freely given. These are difficult and highly sensitive issues affecting countless young victims worldwide. Therefore, we'll be covering 3 true crime cases on sexual assault against females under the age of 18. But seriously, think about it. What if the people you trusted the most betray you in the most horrifying way possible by raping or mutilation or assault?
That was the case for Shamsa Arawilo. Arawilo was born in Somalia, where she was forced to get female genital mutilation at only 6 years old. Then she moved to the UK, living there until she was the ripe age of 17. She decided to take a gap year to return to Somalia at 17, hoping to reconnect with her relatives, one of them being her uncle, a face she'll never forget, as he proceeded to force her into a child marriage with her 15-year-old cousin. For 7 days straight, she was locked up in her uncle's master bedroom with her so-called husband, who raped her for 4 consecutive days. By the 4th day, her insides were so damaged and messed up, she couldn't even urinate. And the remaining 3 days of her honeymoon would be the only time in the entirety of her marriage where she would be able to escape from being touched by her husband, claiming it was so that she could heal from the damage. In the following 8 to 9 months of their marriage, Arawilo endured an endless cycle of physical abuse and sexual assaults from her so-called husband. After months of no contact with friends or family, she managed to get help from her neighbors. Then she immediately contacted her mother, whom she told everything to. Fortunately, she was able to escape after convincing her husband she needed medical treatment and escaping on a bus to Mogadishu. There, she met her maternal aunts who kept her safe until Arawilo's brother came to pick her up.
Do you have online friends or people you trust and talk to often online that you've never met in person before? Lisa was only 15 years old when she was befriended with a man about twice her age online. She met him through a mutual friend who introduced them to each other. The man soon became quite close with Lisa, checking up on her and calling her almost every single day. When she was friends with the man, Lisa was in a vulnerable state as she was having problems with her family, especially with her dad, who wasn't around most of the time. This made her yearn for a fatherly figure, and the man online played this role perfectly. That was until he started asking her inappropriate questions. Do you know how to yourself? He would say. Do you know where your is? He would ask. But she would laugh and brush off those questions. It happened when she was in his car, her first sexual encounter with him. He had grabbed her hand and forced her to touch his private parts. During another occasion, she was out underage drinking with him at night. And when she felt tipsy, she had asked the man to take her home. Instead of doing so, he took her to a hostel where he raped her that night. Stop! Lisa would plead with him, begging and begging him to stop. To no avail. The man continued forcing himself onto her. Lisa tried to do something, anything, but she was drunk and she couldn't defend herself when she couldn't think straight. After he was done with her, he sent her back home. Lisa, vulnerable and naive, thought that he would possibly contact her the next day. However, she received no calls or even a single text from him. Over the next few days, Lisa tried to contact him, yet he never responded. Unfortunately for Lisa, things will only go downhill when she confided to her mom about the situation. Enraged, her mom slapped her, yelled at her, scolded her, and even dragged her to the police station. For an entire year, she wasn't allowed to return home and was instead sent to her grandparents' house to be strictly supervised. Reminiscing of the past, Lisa says that what happened to her when she was 15 made her more resilient and she learned her lesson to be better.
A true crime case that happened over 26 years ago in Japan. She was 16 years old and suffered 44 days straight of torture, forcibly abducted, sexually assaulted, and physically abused, then murdered by 4 high school boys. Her name was Junko Furuta, and this is her story. Junko was pretty, smart, and popular. She followed all the rules and did well on her tests. She never drank nor did drugs. Junko was the epitome of a good girl. Miyano Hiroshi was the opposite. He was a bully who loved to brag and intimidate with his ties with the Yakuza, members of transnational organized crime indicts originating from Japan, similar to the Italian mafia. Many of his schoolmates believed him as in that era, many people were recruited into the Yakuza, and Hiroshi would not stop talking about it. Some speculate Junko Furuta did not know or was not aware that Miyano Hiroshi was part of the Yakuza, nor that she wasn't really too concerned about it. This plays a part into the story when Hiroshi starts to like her a lot. He asks her out one day and Junko declines, which enrages him. A few days later, Miyano Hiroshi, along with his friend Shinji Minato, who are experienced gang rapists intending to rob and rape, walked around town at around 8:30 p.m. It happened on November 25, 1988, when Hiroshi and Minato noticed Junko on her bike. Hiroshi told Minato to run over her and push her off her bike, flee the scene. Under the pretense of having witnessed the incident, Hiroshi will walk over to her, help her up, and offer to walk her home safely, like a heroic bystander. On their way to her home, he gained her trust. This allowed him to trick her into going into a warehouse instead. Hiroshi drapes Junko and rapes her again in a nearby hotel. In the hotel, Hiroshi calls his friend Joe Ogara, Shinji Minato, and Yasushi Wanatabe, bragging about raping her. Around 3 a.m., Hiroshi took Junko to a nearby park, where his friends were waiting. They had learned of her house address from her notebook, and knowing where she lived, threatened to murder her family if she ever tried to escape, revealing that he had ties to the Yakuza. The 4 boys overpowered her and took her to a house in Agassi district of Hadachi and gang raped her. The house was owned by Minato's parents. It was there where she was kept for 44 days straight, enduring unimaginable torture, worse than hell. Her captors, the high school boy, subjected her to sexual violence and psychological torment, leaving her in a state of severe physical and emotional distress. She was raped, beaten, and starved. She was also forced to perform sexual acts in front of the boys and his friends. She was eventually disfigured beyond recognition. Junko Furuta tried to escape as she pleaded with her captors over and over again, but to no avail. Her pleas were never answered as she was isolated from the outside world. Her cries for help were never answered. On January 4th, 1989, Junko succumbed to her injuries and passed away. Her body was eventually found in a cement-filled drum, a testament to the brutality and torture she endured for over a month. This case drew nationwide attention, sparking outrage as the atrocities committed to the young girl are completely unacceptable and a violation of human rights and dignity. Investigators hunted down the culprits, leaving no stone unturned. Upon their arrest, the authorities revealed that 4 teenage boys, Hiroshi Miyano, Joe Ogara, Shinji Minato, and Yasushi Watanabe were responsible for Junko Furuta's death. A trial took place in the court, and all 4 perpetrators pleaded guilty. As a result, All of them were sentenced to prison by the court. None are very sure of the perpetrator's current situation. It has been almost 3 decades since the incident. We hope justice was served and that they all face their consequences for such gruesome actions against another human being. We send our deepest sympathy and condolence to Junko Furuta's family. No amount of words can fully convey the extent of our sorrow upon learning about her case. Rest in peace, Junko Furuta. These cases highlight the urgent need for change in how the law upholds justice and rights for young women, by holding the perpetrators accountable for their actions. This emphasizes on how society should support these victims by spreading awareness and educating others. Although we can't undo what we have done, we should work on a future where young women are safe and that recovery is possible.
I hope you learned something new today, as knowledge are the first steps you can take towards change and a better future.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, and remember to stay compassionate, open-minded, and informed.